Okay, welcome everybody to this general committee meeting on January 28th. I can call the meeting to order at exactly 9 a.m. And we do have quorum, but we have regrets from Councillor Morrison. With that, Councillor Cloutier, would you mind reading the land acknowledgement, please?
Not ready yet. Okay. Thank you. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions toward real truth, reconciliation, and support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Then we are going directly to our first item, which is a recognition of Employee Long Service Awards. And with that, I'm going to move over to that side of the table along with CAO Corey. See you over there. Someone's turned our microphones on over here. You'd think I'd be able to remember the names right off the top of my head, but no, just in case. I can't believe some of them. So we are starting with Lori Allen. 15 years. Congratulations, Lori. That's so cool. I think we're supposed to have a picture in here. Perfect. Thank you. And secondly, Corey Cruson, 15 years. You have to turn around. Congratulations, Corey. And third, Brandon Hall, 15 years. Congratulations. Okay. And next, Cynthia Hampton is 20 years, but she was unable to attend. So we will give this to her a bit later. And finally, Sarah White, 20 years. Wow. Perfect. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, and continue to do the fantastic work that you do for us every day. Thank you. So, set to, there we go. Isn't that great? Did everybody notice the fancy frames we have now? Isn't that nice? I know. It makes it actually a bit nicer, I think. I like it. So we're moving to our deputations, and indeed we have two deputations today, starting with Dave Lyons from the Children's Foundation of Muskoka, who's going to give us an overview and update on all of the good work that they're doing. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Yep.
There we are. Is that good? Good. Perfect. Nice to see everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I don't come with a cap in hand. I'm not coming as an ask. I'm coming to say, nice to see you again. I was here in 2020 and I kindly, was provoked and kind of suggested that maybe it's time for you to swing by and just let people know what you've been up to and what the Children's Foundation is doing. And perhaps we could look at, as we go, things that we could collaborate on, and we can help support some of the great things that you do, and vice versa. We can work together, as we know that really is the secret sauce for really everything. So I've been with the foundation now for about 13 years as a board member and a VP and a president of the board, and now executive director of the foundation now for 8 years. I'm going to do just a quick recap. Our vision, for those of you that are new to us, this is what we're all about. Supporting kids from low economic homes to be healthy, happy, and feel a sense of belonging in their communities through all the supports that we can offer. And our mission, keyword, as I'm sure is central to your work, is partnership. There's nothing we do alone, and there's nothing we can accomplish on our own. We have wonderful partnerships with our social services friends, the district, and all the folks that come together to allow us to do the things that we do, because without them, we simply don't do what we do. So what do we do exactly? We have framed our work as the 6 pillars of support. I'll just share with you briefly what it is that we do. We provide grants so children can take part in sports and recreation activities, whether that be just rec activities or dance or hockey or baseball. We send kids to summer camp. We're probably the biggest charity, well, we are the biggest charity in Muskoka that sends kids to residential and day camps. We provide basic needs, whether that be a bed, a stroller, or supports for children with specific medical needs. We provide mental health, and we team with mental health agencies to ensure kids can access those supports, whether that be MindAid or other providers. We let kids and get kids into the arts. And we provide post-secondary school education grants, and those are up to $5,000. So, and a youth can come back to us year after year after year to get those. And that can be for training, and that could be for schooling specifically. So that's what we do. And just so you get a better sense of how that breaks down, more than half of those grants are for sports and recreation. So about 58% of those provide. About a quarter of our grants go to send kids to camp, and then the other quarter are broken down with all the other pillars, as you can see there. So in 2025, we supported 470 kids with grants. Of the 470, 270 of them were for sports and rec. 112 children went to camp. 26 kids received support for mental health. 25 kids received basic needs, which, to be honest with you, it was primarily beds. 19 children enjoyed the arts, like music or dance lessons or drama camp. And 10 children received grants for post-secondary training or education. So that was about $275,000 in grants. That was a 20% jump from 2024. So we can kind of see where things are moving. So who do we serve? Just to give you a sense of where those folks come from and who they are. They're all Muskoka residents, which is one of the premises that you have to be a Muskoka resident to receive a grant. Families need, and they also need to have household incomes below $70,000. And that's kind of it. When it comes to our criteria for funding, that's it. The average income of our applicants, I thought you'd be interested to see, is about $39,000 a year. So when you put this in context with LICO, which is a low-income cutoff, is established by StatsCan, that number for a family of 4 is about $57,000. So our families are nearly $20,000 a year below the low-income cutoff. So that gives you a context of them. And we review applications every month, and so many of them are in that range of $15,000 to $20,000 a year. And I think, I don't know how you do it. I don't know, honestly, how you keep it all together and keep things going and moving. So we have, over our years, we've been around since 1992. We've filled over 10,000 applications since that time, and that would total over $3.25 million in grants. So it's pretty good when we think about back in 1992, we had one application for a $350 grant, and and the party was over because that was the end of the money. So, and here we are, and we fill 30 to 40 to 50 grants a month, and about 400 to 500 a year. So it's good. So where do they reside? Really, they reside, it's about a third. About a third of our kids are in North Muskoka, about a third of our kids reside in Central Muskoka, and about a third of our kids are in South Muskoka. But if you break that down further, the greater proportion of them are Huntsville-based kids. So 206 of those kids are from Huntsville, 170 from Bracebridge, 141 from Gravenhurst area, 46 Muskoka Lakes, and Georgian Bay, meaning really McTier. There's about 10 kids from that area. So you can see that where the kids that we serve come from, but it really is predominantly across the entire district. However, the majority do lie in Huntsville. So why do we do what we do? I mean, I'm sure we ask ourselves that question every single day. And it's probably a good idea to remind ourselves of that every day that we come into work, whether it's coming to sit at the table and think of what am I going to do for my community, or us, what are we going to do for those kids that need us most? And I'm sure you'd agree that it's probably not a really easy time right now to be a kid, or for that matter, an adult. It's things are challenging. As we break down these stats, and I show you just a few numbers, I won't go into colossal amount of detail, but put them in the context of a family that is needing to cover all the bases, pay the rent, get food, do all those things, and then think, okay, what's left to send a kid to camp? What's left to, pay that $2,000 for dance this year, or, $800 for hockey registration plus equipment? It's a challenge. So basically 1 in 6 of kids now that in our area face food and housing insecurity. 1 in 3 kids report mental health challenges. Our friends at MindAid have told us how well documented this is and how urgent this is. And I was stunned to hear that that kids in Muskoka are 3 times more likely to be hospitalized for mental health challenges than anywhere else in the province, which I think is stunning and tough to hear. 2 in 3 kids are not getting the amount of physical activity they need. So really means only 1 in 3 are. And there's a whole bunch of barriers to that, whether that be economic, whether that be costs, and there's a lot of barriers to making that happen. 1 in 2 people in Muskoka have jobs that are deemed precarious, meaning no benefits. So if you're not working, you're not seeing any other forms of income happening or other ways to supplement or augment what you're doing. And 3 in 4 Muskokans have income under $60,000 a year. And 3 in 5 of those make under $40,000. So you come back to that low income cutoff again. So you can see the quote at the bottom, that kids and youth living in poverty are more socially isolated, experience more stress, have poorer mental health and physical health, and have fewer opportunities. So the impact, I just want to share a few words with you. I am so fortunate in my job to be the one that primarily talks to the families and the one that connects firsthand and hears about the impact. But here are some quotes from families that we've served. Words cannot express my gratitude. Our little boy has been waiting to get a bed, and when it arrived, he was beaming from ear to ear and spent the day in his room setting it up. The summer camp experience was transformative for her. It had a profound impact on her life. When I picked her up from camp, I noticed a remarkable change. She spoke clearly without any trace of her previous stutter, and she radiated a new found self-assurance. The support you provided reminded us that community care still exists and that we are not alone in our darkest moments. We are deeply grateful to the Children's Foundation for restoring stability, dignity, and hope to our home. We look forward to being back on our feet and paying that kindness forward tenfold. So the impact is profound. It makes a difference. It's game changers for so many of our families. And the last quote I want to share is from a Huntsville High School student who went on to university and wrote back and so eloquently said, "Your support means more to me than just financial assistance. It's a powerful reminder that I am not alone in pursuing these dreams. It truly takes a village, and I am honored to have the CFM as part of mine. And with any fortunate, with any luck, this young lady who's gone on to university may one day be representing us in the Olympics in downhill skiing. So this will be a great story from a kid from a single parent home who struggled to get through elementary school and high school, and now is on the cusp of doing great things. And we'll say, hey, that's great. We were part of that village. So to wrap things up, because I see that the zeros have popped up, I just want to say and say, what are our next steps? What can we do together? And I've got a slide here of a picture of bikes, because I know you do a wonderful thing with bikes and the mayor's bike ride. It just so happens that the Children's Foundation was involved in a similar activity years ago. It was called Bike Fest. We did it for a number of years in partnership with the Board of Education and Canadian Tire, and we supported 40 to 50 kids a year for a day of biking at Buckwallow. The kids had a great meal. They learned bike safety. It was a day about active transportation and healthy living. And at the end of the day, the beautiful thing was I got to play Santa Claus, which is really not such a stretch anymore, and sad to say. And I got to pick all those bikes up and deliver them to the kids' homes. So they walked away at the end of the day with a bike, a helmet, and a lock. So what can we do together, and what can we do? This maybe, the whole bike piece is the way to start, but we are certainly and would be grateful for any kind of connection we can do to further support you and vice versa.
Dave, thank you very much for the presentation. I know there are going to be questions around the table, but first off, I have to say, as a constant in the mayor's bike ride, I can't imagine a better marriage between your foundation or the Children's Foundation and our bike ride. I know for the last few years, we've been able to raise funds for at least half a dozen bikes and helmets for kids in our community. And it's such an awesome feeling. But doing it together with the foundation makes all the sense in the world. And, as you noted, the objectives of both are very much aligned. So I can hardly wait. I know you've already started having discussions with Simone and the team. So awesome. I'm in. I think that's fantastic.
And Simone has been great to work with over the years, and we've really appreciated that. It's a great connection.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for that. Councillor Schumacher.
Not so much a question as a comment. Dave, thank you very much for coming. I do always appreciate these are like some of my favorite moments when we get to hear the good work in the community that you're doing. And I do realize you've worked with Simone, so maybe you are already aware, but we do have that affordable recreation program.
Okay.
And since you do have a tap into sort of the people in our community that could benefit from it the most, it's taken off. We've actually gotten awards at conferences for this affordable recreation program that we are spearheading over the last couple of years at with community services.
Okay.
So touch base with Simone
Absolutely.
on that
Thank
for
you.
sure, because I think it's a good, you're doing great work for dance classes and stuff, but there's opportunities maybe to physically get families together and be able to access some of our town facilities and really thrive.
Thank you. No, that's great. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Great idea. Councillor Stone.
Thanks very much. So I can attest to the impact this has. I sat on the board for about 8 years, and reading the heartfelt applications and the great needs. I've even had opportunity to take kids shopping for a bed or clothes, and just the pride that swells in them and the appreciation from the parents and trying to maintain their dignity along the way as well was so important. So anyways, great work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
We can't do enough.
And we miss you on the board, Bob. Bob had that way of cutting to the chase. And I know that probably surprises you being at these tables, but
Are there, yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Dave, for coming in and sharing this incredible information. When Cam and I first came to Huntsville in, what was 1996, so almost 30 years ago, part of the community, the Children's Foundation of Muskoka also had a daycare program, and we took part in that. And the people that I met through the daycare program that was actually at the town, at the Summit Center, now, I guess, it was incredible. So thank you for the work you're doing. And it's sad to know that we have to have this work done,
Right.
correct? But I'm so thankful that you are there and board members like yourselves are doing what you're doing. And if there's any way the town can help, and I love the idea of the bike ride, that'll be a great collaboration. But if there's other things that we can do as a council, that would be great to know.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. A quick question about separated families, broken families.
Right.
With dual incomes.
Right.
Like you had that 60,000
Right.
threshold there. So what if between the two of them make over the 60,000? Can they not apply, or can one apply?
No, you know what? We work in the area of the gray, not the black and the white. And so when I see an application come in, so last month, for instance, we had one, the income was 90,000. And so I usually say, okay, leave that with me. I'll phone. And because 9 times out of 10, there's a backstory there. So you got 2 families, right? And so what we did was, when we started digging deeper as to what that income actually was, as opposed to the very honest 90,000 that she put down, it wasn't 90,000. So we funded her. If there's 2 incomes and there's 2 separate households, we only count that as a household. So if mom's here and dad's here and kids are going back and forth, we would count income as being one home, not both. We wouldn't combine them. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is we really do everything we can to bend the rules so that the board doesn't either kill me or fire me, or that we manage our funds in a way that works, because there's a story every time. Another one was an high income, but we found out there were huge medical expenses. And when we went down, I said, reapply, take every medical expense off that you have, the travel, the cost of your food when you go down, all that goes into maintain, and then reapply with your new income. And sure enough, right? I mean, the amount of disposable income left is marginal.
Yeah, very quick. I'd like to nominate Bob Stone to your board.
Accepted. Welcome back, Bob. Good to have you.
We're such an easy table.
Yeah. Us too. I think we're going to get along well.
Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. And Dave, thank you again.
Well, thank you for
And
having me. I
thank you for
appreciate it.
all you
I'm just going to leave you with our card and my card. If there are things, it's funny, we've been around for a long time. I would deeply appreciate it. And if you're not busy, on the 27th of February, we have a Toronto Maple Leaf alumni hockey game. And Wendell Clark is coming to town. It's a Bracebridge, sorry. But we're selling tickets, and there's great opportunity there. And so check our website out and see it there. And come and get a picture of Wendell. Like, we really want that.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
everyone.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
bye. All right, with that, we're moving to our second deputation. We have Dave Uffelman and Cheryl Harrison from the Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare. And it's their annual update of mock activities. Welcome, you two.
So as mentioned, I'm Dave Uffelman. I'm chair of the hospital board. Cheryl's going to do all the talking today. Cheryl Harrison's our CEO, and she's going to bring you an update. Once we get to questions at the end, feel free to direct some at me. Thanks.
Actually, you can direct them all to Dave. Thank you for having us today. And I want to begin with thanking our foundations right at the beginning, because our foundations are made up of all the great donations that come in from all over our community and beyond. And, I love starting the presentation like that, and with pictures of some of the new stuff that we've gotten over the last year, including our MRI, which has just been an amazing contribution to our diagnostic imaging. Along with both their annual giving, our foundations behind the scenes and out front are working really, really hard on their capital campaign for our 2 new hospitals. And I'm sure everybody heard about the $20 million donation in honor of Bob Hutchinson. And is really, really, really pleased and honored that we'll be able to name the Huntsville site after Bob. And I'm not crying. I've just got watery eyes today for some reason. Partnerships and collaboration are just so essential for Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare. As Dave just spoke to, I think it's no matter what field you're in, having healthy partnerships in our communities is great. And we want to do it so that we can make sure that people are living their healthiest lives. I've highlighted a few there that I want to speak to. One is the partnership with our Northern Ontario School of Medicine. We're training physicians right here in our own communities. And we're now working on a partnership with the new medical school, York University, who will be working with us to also place medical students in their first cohort in 2028. With NOSM University, we also have what's called the Physician-Led Education Group. And for some reason, not a lot of people know about this, but this is research that is led by our own physicians through NOSM. And it's research that actually has an impact on work and care that we're providing today. So that is, not only is that pretty exciting to make sure we're using best practice and evidence-based information, but the other issue is that it's a real recruiting tool. Physicians love to do research. And so to be able to come work in a community, work at a hospital, and also do research is a real bonus. And there's several other examples of partnerships on there. It really does reflect that our healthcare system can't work in silos. And by working closely with our communities and our regional partners, we can build a more connected, sustainable healthcare system in Muskoka and area. MAC is really proud of the work that we have done and continue to do with our communication and community engagement. We have an extensive engagement framework that we use and a few new ones that I'm going to mention. We have a new CEO advisory table. I have about 6 great people from all over Muskoka representing all the different communities, and we just get together and talk about what they're hearing out in their communities. I run things by them if we've got something going on. And this has been instrumental the last year. They're real influencers in our community as well. So if they have questions that they can go out and help people understand what we're doing, it has really helped. Our patient experience partners, we couldn't do our work without them. These are volunteer patients and families that come and influence and inform the work that we're doing. And the last one that was new and just started it this past year is our Pulse podcast. And we have lots of different subjects that we talk about. There's about 3 or 4 now on our website. So I really encourage people to go and have a listen. And I mentioned our foundations. They're instrumental for us as well in terms of engagement. We go to a lot of events, do a lot of networking with people, opportunities to have face-to-face discussions and help people understand what's new and up and coming at our hospital. Obstetrics at Muskoka Algonquin, there's been a lot of uncertainty around it. I'd love to be able to say we've got more certainty, but we still have work ahead of us. So we've been working with Ontario Health, the Ministry of Health, and we've been given a lot of support to continue that work. We're also looking at a formal partnership where we will be able to have a higher level relationship with another organization to be able to create a bigger and better obstetrical program for Muskoka. We have added a web site onto our website about obstetrics where we can give more detail on some of that work. And like many hospitals across the province, we have our hurdles, some of them the same, some of them not. Interesting listening to Dave's comments about what's unique in Muskoka. Housing costs, for sure. We hear that all the time in recruitment. But the other thing is mental health concerns. A large part of that is that we just don't have the community services. So we've got great tertiary care that patients can come into Emerge and then go to Barrie or Aurelia, but they come back and mental health is not something that just, it's one and done. And so we don't have a lot of community services. And again, when we can find partners, we definitely jump on that. And the low income levels, that just listening to that last presentation and you think about the kids and what their health issues are because of not having the right food, not the right exercise. We know the increase in type 2 diabetes and especially in children. So, it is somewhat unique in our communities when you've got all those things coming together. and the impact that it has on healthcare. What would be a presentation without an update about our stage 1.3 submission? And again, I really hope every time we get a delegation somewhere that I can update this slide. What I can say is that everything is in. We are just waiting, and we've answered every question that they need to know. And we're hoping our schedule is to know by the spring. And everybody that I've been speaking with at the ministry level has said that you're still on for that date. So nothing is being delayed because we haven't heard anything. We probably got a little excited and thought maybe we'd get an announcement, but we haven't yet. So stay tuned. The next stage, though, is really exciting. I mean, it's exciting because we get to start doing block schematics. We get to hire an architect. We get to put all the documents together, which I understand, I'm not so sure how much fun that is, but all the documents to get ready in 18 months to go out to tender for our contractors. So, then it's really going to be tangible. We're going to actually be able to have renderings that we can, show people. But even without that, I'm really proud of our communities. Like I sit on both foundation boards, and although people have a lot of questions, people are giving. They are really giving. So people don't give to something that they don't believe in. Just a little bit of an update. We did do a refresh of our strategic plan. And as we look forward, we know how important our plan is to make sure that it grounds us in all the work that we're doing. I'm the mission there on the left-hand side, that we want to get together, provide outstanding integrated care to support people to live their healthiest lives. These words just didn't appear on paper. This is what we heard from our community, from our internal team members. And I love our bold vision, transforming healthcare together. And that's what it's really about. We didn't change our focus very much on our pillars. Not surprising that quality of care and safety is always top of mind, and we're always looking at new ways that we can improve that. Partnership and collaboration, again, it's rooted in our strategic plan because of the importance that it has. Sorry. And innovative future. I think I've said this before, the innovation in healthcare is just changing like no tomorrow. And so we always have to stay on top of it. And the great thing with our new hospitals is that we have to look at innovation, because the hospitals 10 years from now are going to look very different. We're going to have a lot of technology that we don't even know exists. And then last but not least is our team is our strength. We are blessed with amazing healthcare providers that are not just committed to coming to work every day, but are committed to their communities and to their patients. And I'm always amazed as I go out and about and see the great work. Over this past Christmas, the volume with influenza was out just over the top. And the tireless work that our staff did just amazed me. And we had volumes to the point that we had to escalate our gridlock policy twice with Ontario Health, because we didn't have a space to put anybody. But they continue to look after patients. When I talk to patients, they're like, I know we're in this area and we're not supposed to be here, but you know what? They have a smile on their face and they're taking care of me. So that just goes a long way to support the great care that our team gives. So I think, 8 seconds, look at that. As always, we end our presentation. Follow along with us on our website. Lots of great updates there. You can direct people to there as well for any questions they may have.
Thank you, Cheryl, for all of that information. And there are so many things that I would love to ask questions about. But I always find when I get the update, I get really excited. I get nervous, but I get excited at the same time because of all of the different things that are going on. So the one thing, before I turn it over to council, just a quick question. As you made reference to, technology is always changing, constantly having to be innovative and all of that. Is there an impact on the submission to the province, or is our relationship with them fluid enough that if there was something that shifted, you would be able to update the submission, or how does that work? Because I know that you have to be nimble all the time.
You do, and our relationship is very, very strong. They've been following, our planning for a very, very long time. We've had them at the table with us on a quarterly basis, as well as Infrastructure Ontario. So, and they're actually very excited about our future vision of what healthcare can be in Muskoka, and the innovation of having a hospital with 2 sites, serving their communities in different ways in the future than we are today. Quite frankly, it's just, there's so many hospital builds out there, some very large ones, and there's only so much cash. So they're doing their very best to figure out how to get every project in the queue. And there's a lot of rural community hospitals that are in the same boat as us as well.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure that part of it is the innovation in this particular project is what turns their crank.
Could I just add to that?
Yeah, sure, Dave.
And,
Yep.
and what I wanted to bring to it is a lot of the technological innovation is a capital cost. And those capital costs typically are not provincial costs, they're local costs. And as Cheryl said, we are really blessed in this community with the generous donations, the strong foundations, and so on. So in terms of supporting the cost of that innovation, we're in good shape.
That's fantastic. And as we all know, there's another fundraiser coming up in a week and a half on February 7th. One more time on February 7th. All right, Council. Any questions or comments? Councillor Schumacher.
More a comment, really. I can thank you, Cheryl and Dave, for coming and doing your presentation. I can attest, recently my father was in the hospital just before that Christmas rush that you had, and I went in to support him a few times in there, and all I kept thinking to myself is, I wish we could put shovels in the ground, because that emergency room could stand to be that much bigger. There were people in the hallway on beds. And I know there was the flu going around with kids in rooms and my dad in a room and people being shuffled all around. And I guess not really a question, but I know that's always my biggest contention is, by the time we build, we're almost already 10 years behind. Like, when we look at the amount of people that need to be in our aging population, as you've indicated, are the plans and that we're looking at now, are we going to need to tweak them because of these situations? Like, a lot of falls I saw in the hospital in the winter, aging people, that kind of thing in that time frame. Just speak to that.
Sure, and you're right. And I've been in healthcare for over 40 years, and part of builds on opening emergency departments 10 years after the fact that are too small or not enough operating rooms. So you do the best you can. We have prescribed data that we have to use in terms of population growth. We've had great health planners with us who are seeing a lot of what technology is out there. So when we're designing our rooms, make sure you've got this and that, because you're going to have different technology that you're going to use. It's what you just have to go with, and you hope that they don't let you overbuild. I know that we tried one route of even some shelved space, and that just doesn't go over well. And the planning cycle, it's a long process. Most hospitals are like 10 years before they're even being told, yeah, now you can go out and find a contractor. A lot changes then, and then you've got another 3 to 5 years to actually do the building. So you just hope you've had the best people at the table, you've had enough foresight to do the planning, and then you manage it as it comes.
Follow up?
Follow up more to, I can speak to that, as my father was on the school board and building the brand new school at VK Greer, and wanted an extra for 2 rooms, and they wouldn't build to the population that was going to be at the time. And then of course you end up with portables, and those things change, but it is what it is. And you have to, I guess, yes, as you say, go to what the plan and the specification is for the procedure that you need to, and just hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be overly negative, but just to add to the challenge, population growth is one thing. A much bigger issue is the age of the population. And we all know the province has a tremendous challenge in healthcare because of an aging population, which puts more and more pressure on healthcare across the province. And when you look at Muskoka, the aging is that much greater than, or projected to be that much greater than the provincial average. So that is probably a bigger issue than population growth
And
itself.
essentially, that's what I saw when I was there in the hospital.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, and that's why the Made in Muskoka healthcare model, having dedicated services for reactivation and rehab are going to be essential. And we're all going to be there, and we don't want to age in long-term care necessarily unless we have to, and that's okay. But our healthcare system in the hospital is going to help support people to get home. So
Which is why we're laser focused also on providing services to allow people to age in place, and which is equally important, as you just said, Cheryl. So I don't see any other question. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Just a very quick one. I'm not, when you move into the next phase, do you see yourselves having more community open houses to discuss the next, what building, where it's going to be, size of rooms, et cetera?
yes, absolutely. Once we get the architects chosen, they'll be similar to what we did with functional programming. We'll be having focus groups with providers as well as people in the community.
Thank you for that. I noticed in the slide deck that when you were referring to the obstetrics, that there might be an announcement sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and when we did the presentation, we hadn't heard anything. We continue to have discussions at this point. There's no decisions being made yet, but what we have heard from the ministry is they want us to continue to work. And as I said, continue to work with, we're working with Aurelia Soldiers Memorial Hospital. We already have an informal relationship, and so we're going to continue to work, figure out how we can provide, top-notch obstetrical services. The siting is not yet decided, though.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Schumacher, followed by Councillor Stone.
I just wanted to comment, though, that because I was remiss in bringing up the challenges, but the staff were amazing when my father was in there. I just wanted to reiterate that the care that he did get while he was in there, and that, I mean, they do go above and beyond, and I did want to mention that and make sure that that is aware.
Councillor Stone?
Thanks. I remember one of the challenges with the proposed model was transportation between the two sites. Have we made any progress in that area?
When the board approved going to releasing the submission, we set up 3 working groups. One of those was addressing transportation. Now, in fairness, we've probably got 6 or 8 years to solve that problem. But that working group has moved along. One of the first things it did was just inventory what's out there. There are a number of service groups that provide transportation. Certainly the district is working at it. There's a lot more than was really appreciated. Just understanding that, certainly in all of the engagement, we heard it over and over that that's a real concern and something that has to be addressed. So no, we don't have a comprehensive solution, but we're building the foundation of what's there, where we need to go, and we've got some time.
Yeah. So clearly you're in communication with the district about our long-range bus, and we are getting 2 more buses ourselves. So that's part of the coming infrastructure for us as well. So hopefully we can work together.
Yeah, and the other piece too is just interfacility transportation, and if somebody in Bracebridge needs to have a higher level of ICU care and we need to get them up, we want to make sure we have good relationships with our paramedic program. I know that they've done their strategic plan and they're looking at an additional vehicle that would be for transfers and those type of things, because they're feeling the pressure every time they have to take one patient out of our region. So that's under the works as well. We have, private non-urgent transportation that, again, I think there's some opportunities there, that we can work on as well.
Yeah, I think I would echo certainly what Councillor Stone said about cooperation, because as that advisory group or working group works towards getting to that plan, I think having representation from at least the director of operations from the town, from both towns actually, and the district would be a good thing, because as Bob said, we are beefing up our own local transit, constantly thinking about how to improve it and make the service that much more accessible. So I just think having that representation would be helpful. Okay. With that, thank you again. Great update. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Councillor Fitzgerald to take over as chair.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by Monty Cloutier, seconded by Bob Stone, whereas Ellis Engineering Inc. performed a comprehensive inspection of the Brunel lift locks in 2025 and presented the findings to General Committee on September 24th, 2025. And whereas the results of the inspection included recommended repair and replacement work, including timelines and preliminary costs. Now, therefore, it is recommended that Phase 1 of the Brunel lift lock repair and replacement project, as noted in Report Ops 2026-3, be approved at a cost of up to $100,000 in 2026 to be funded through the Parks Capital Reserve. And further, that Phase 2 of the Brunel lift locks repair and replacement project, as noted in Report Ops 2026-3, be included in the draft 2027 Mayor's budget for consideration. Brandon and Tina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Good morning, Council. Thank you for having Brandon and I here this morning. As you can see in the report, we are asking for approval for $100,000 to go into the 2026 budget. That being said, as you had the presentation in the fall of all the components at the Brunel locks, there are some components that do need some tender, loving care now. So we would like to do most of the work that doesn't have to interfere with closing down the locks, doing it this year, and putting in a majority of the work next year in 2027 to be considered in the mayor's budget for the dewatering part. The reason why we're trying to squeeze it into a 2-year, we did reach out for a grant just to hear it out. With the presentation that you got to see in the fall, and with us showing that we are willing to pay out of the Parks Reserve, we have a good chance of getting 50%. With the, we reached out to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, and they normally do their grants in a 2-year. So we kind of want to, get in front of this before we come back here, and I have to say I have to close it because we've had some issues and we can't have operations going. So with me today, I do have Director Mackenzie to help with some finance questions, Director Frame to help with some grant questions, and beside me I have Manager of Operations, Brandon, with me to help with any engineer questions. So before I turn it back over to you, Councillor Fitzgerald, I do want to remind Council, this is one of our biggest capital parks. It is a historic park. We only have one of these parks. A lot of people from around the world and a lot of people within our municipality come to this park. They use this park to go fishing. They use this park to come for a picnic. They bring community events to that park. We only have one of these, and this term has been very well motivated with helping user groups putting new equipment in our parks, which helps our community, which is wonderful. And I'm here today to ask you for support on using some of those the Parks Reserves on keeping this historic park open and operating, and not coming here last minute for an emergency shutdown. So back to you, Brandon.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go to council. Any comments or questions? Councillor Stone.
So I'm looking at the numbers of the boats going through the locks. And I presume that is a one-way trip each time a boat goes through the lock. Is that correct? 481?
Correct.
Okay. And presumably those trips are to and from a destination for the most part. So logically, 240 people used the locks 480 times. And we're looking at spending $2.1 million in 2027. I struggle with that. It can be maintained as a park, for sure, and you sold me on the park. But the lock usage, that's a lot of money for a small number of people using the locks, in my opinion. I have no trouble with the 100,000 in the 26 budget, but I don't think I can commit to anything beyond that myself.
Anyone else? I think Councillor Cloutier, then Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Ryan.
Through you, Chair. As it's been put to us, it's not only just earlier in our term, this came up as a cost-cutting measure, and it didn't work. And that's why we reverted our decision back to keeping them open. So to come and say, okay, we're not going to have locks there anymore, we're just going to dam it up and do whatever, it's going against our word that we've already said that we're going to use them. They are historic. We live in a historic town. There's lots of history all over the town, as everybody knows. This is a big part of our town, this lock system. We need the locks, even though it's a small number. And it's actually, if you look at the amount of boats that are out on the water, it's probably not a small number on any given day. You know, let's say 1,000 boats out there and 400 are using them, whatever, just it's on that. But as far as the historic part, it's part of our heritage, and heritage costs money to keep working and in, so that it's not gets passed on. I feel this has been passed on for the last few councils. I've talked to a couple older council members, and every time it just keeps getting pushed on and pushed on. They didn't want to make the decision. I think we have to make the decision to get this done before this thing starts falling in the water on us, because the walls there are bad. We've seen the report. We've all agreed on what's in the report, and it's time to fix it. I mean, we have to fix it. We can't leave it sit there. And if by doing it in stages like that was presented to us, that's the way to do this. We're not asking to do this all at once. It's all been put out in stages, and I think we can work it into our budgets over the few years that it's going to take to get done. So I'm fully supportive of doing what has to be done there.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Cloutier. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. I sort of echo everything that Councillor Cloutier has just said. I think it's an important part of our community. The initial ask is just for $100,000 to fix it up. So really it's considering the next stage in the mayor's budget in 2027. So it's going to go back to this table, and by that time we may have some grant money, hopefully, and those numbers will drop drastically, I would assume. So I totally support this, and good job. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments, Deputy Mayor. And then Councillor Renwick, and your worship, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. And I would echo the comments that I just heard across the table. Within this motion, it does say that it's 100,000 for this year, which we are okay with. I couldn't agree more that this is part of Huntsville, and it is part of a historic component of Huntsville. So I think we need to definitely look at it. In this motion as well, we are looking at it as a proposed motion, or in the mayor's budget for 2027. And not to echo, but to echo what Deputy Mayor Armour just said, if we approve this today, then it allows staff to look forward to grants. And I think there will be grants, because it is something that is so unique in our community and in this entire Muskoka community. So I think grants, and perhaps Director Frame might be able to speak to that, or to, yeah, would that be okay if it,
Of course it
Chair
would.
Fitzgerald?
So yes, we have approached the NOHFC, which Muskoka is now eligible for, which is great. I think that happened early last year. And we've had some preliminary conversations about the specific project, and they are very excited to help in any way that they can. And I mean, without having formal approval of it, it looks very promising that we could get up to 50% funding for the entire project.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. And I also echo very much what people have said around the table. I understand, Councillor Stone's comment about the numbers. And having said that, I definitely echo this is part of our heritage. I think that once the renovations have happened, once we've improved the infrastructure, do all of that, as Councillor Cloutier said, it's part of our heritage. And that becomes very much a part of a new communication strategy to say, this is something that has historically been very important, just as was outlined in our briefing note. That I think there are probably a number of voters out there who don't have the history that would use it if they were aware of it. And so I think we could, I actually think we could have a communication strategy or campaign that includes this. And I think we could get those numbers up quite substantially, because it is a really cool thing to be able to do in our community. So, and again, today we're considering the 100,000. To me, that makes all the sense in the world. I'm very supportive of the briefing note as presented.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. And not to repeat a lot of what's been said, but I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. I would support the $100,000 in this 2026 budget. And just to repeat some of what Councillor Cloutier said, I do remember when we were considering cuts a few years ago to the locks, and boy, I can tell you, my phone was ringing when we were talking about that, and that was a mistake that, as a council, some of us made, but we were able to rectify that decision. So I think through that whole process, we realized how important the locks really are to our community and our residents. So I think it's important that we look after what we own. And I do think that we can make a decision today on the $100,000 and moving forward into 2027. It doesn't mean that we can't make a different choice for expenses when the 2027 budget comes back, and that's certainly an option that council has. But I think that today, by moving forward, at the very least, we also allow, as Riva mentioned, our staff to pursue grants up to 50%, which I think is a very important part of this project, and hopefully we're successful with those grants.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Clark. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Fitzgerald. Yeah, agree a lot with what has been said. Totally great with the 100,000, and as we said, we can renegotiate if we can get up to 50,000 or 50%. That's definitely cutting the cost in half to, as Councillor Clark said, a lot of the phone calls we got around what we were looking to do last time. And to the mayor's point, and she said about Councillor Cloutier said, but I'm going back to around the rinks, and if you build it, they will come, was Councillor Cloutier, maybe Kevin Costner's comments in Field of Dreams. I know Councillor Fitzgerald and myself have had a number of emails, even from constituents who would like to see one evening, maybe if we open that up, just to go and have dinner. And maybe that is we renegotiate the fees, and maybe we have a different fee structure. And I know, don't get mad at me for that right now, but looking at how we implement some of those costs back and creating some more opportunities that might generate more usage in there, because I think there is the ability to do that by looking outside the box a little and using Councillor Cloutier's point, if we build it, they will come. And I think that will, we could see some definitely improved benefit for that.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Stone.
Thanks. So I don't disagree that it's a heritage piece, and I love it. It's quaint. It's a part of who we were and who we are. And I think it's politically easy to say we'll talk about it in the next term. We've also been elected to be fiscally responsible too, and $2 million is a huge amount of public funds. So I struggle with it. If the motion is to approve phase one and propose phase two in the budget for next term, then I can go along with that. But when it comes right down to it, if we don't get the 50% grant, at that time, if I'm still around, I don't know that I could stomach that big number. But I can go along with it as it's presented.
Thank you for your comments. Any further questions? Brandon, you'd like to say something?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Just to kind of help with the conversation, there's a couple other ways to look at this. A lot of these boats are, $50,000, $60,000 that are rolling through this lock. So that's another big thing that, they've invested, the public's invested into those boats, or 100,000, sorry, Kluge. But they're pretty expensive, and to have some locks that are just in some disrepair, you might lose that user group going through those locks. And the more we try to, we're trying to get ahead of the curve. Tina's put together a great plan that puts you in a good situation for not only this term of council, but the next term, as we lay that out. But if we choose to push this down the road on certain things, those locks could be in a state of disrepair, and we're back in a couple years, 4 or 5 years from now, and those costs are going to double or triple. And then if you don't have the users that are going through there because we're not maintaining this to a certain degree, we're just at risk. You're not going to have anybody using it. It's going to be sitting there, but we still have a responsibility to fix it, whether it's being used or not. So, that's kind of how we look at it. And there is a lot of money that's rolling through those locks tied up in those boats and from the users. So I think that's also very important to consider as well.
Thank you, Brandon, for your comments. So just so everyone's clear, we're only voting on 100,000 upper limit for the repairs, which we feel are necessary, and a consideration in the budget. So everyone understands that. I will call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you both. We'll move along here. All right. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Dan Armour. Whereas staff were directed to conduct a photometric study at Macaulay Robertson Recreation Park to determine if any lighting concerns existed. And whereas a study completed in October 25 confirmed that while Diamond F lighting meets the standards for the in-play area, non-playing areas require additional illumination. Now, therefore, it is recommended that lighting improvements at Baseball Diamond F at the Macaulay Robertson Recreation Park be completed to improve safety and accessibility. And further, that the estimated capital cost of $70,000 to be funded from development charges, $10,850, and remaining come from Parks Capital Reserve, $59,150. Okay. You too.
Alrighty.
Up again.
Through you, Councillor Fitzgerald. So I'll just give you a little background. In 2019, Macaulay Robinson did get an upgrade. In 2022, council at the time put in the budget for the Diamond F lights to be redone. In 2024, the lights did get underway and finished. We started in 2024. We used a tender that was originally done back in 2019. To save on having another study come in and give us another tender, so we use the same tender. Going forward in 2025, council directed staff to go get a photometric study done, which has come back as the infield playing is lit up and it meets the standards. The only thing is that it caught was the perimeter and the backstop is not lit up. That could cause a safety risk for the players, pedestrians, spectators, anybody using the park at that time. So we are here today to ask council on direction of staying the way it is today, or we move forward with putting 2 light poles behind the backstop with 2 lights getting put on the existing light poles for first base and third base to help light up around those areas that are in dark. It's about 70,000, and I believe the just over 10,000 will come from the DC study. Back in 2024, it was budgeted for 417, and we only spent 331. So, did you want to add anything?
Sure. To you, Chair Fitzgerald. Thanks, Tina. Yeah, the design that was used in Tina, when I did it, the design that was used was one of the ones of diamond A, B, and C. And looking at their foul lines to the fence line, you're talking about 4 or 5 feet. When you look at diamond F, you know, you're 15, 20 feet outside. So there's a bit of a black area, but there's no clear cut dry specification for your lighting. It's we lit up the infield play. I mean, some of the consultations that we had, some would say that you take that risk if you want to run out of play to catch a ball. You know, at what limits do you really light up? If that fence line was 40 feet out from the foul line, do we have to light up that 40 feet? There's no clear cut answer to that. So the design that was taken was, just to reiterate, was the one that was used for all 3 diamonds, and there's been no complaints on those. But again, they don't use hardball on those diamonds. So
Thank you, Brandon. Comments or questions from council? Start with Councillor Clark, followed by Deputy Mayor Armour.
Well, thanks, Chair. So I guess I've reached my exceeded comfort level for today for added expenses. So I'd like to get that off my chest. But thank you for the report. I think what I'd like to see happen is that it be considered in the 2027 budget, and that would be where I'd like to see it fall.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Clark. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. Quick one, when you talk to foul line, are you talking a foul line within the fence or outside the fence? So the 2 lights that you're referring to on down the first and third baseline, they would go on the existing poles and light up that whole foul area on both sides? Correct. Okay, so for the behind home plate, would it be feasible to put in some type of street light to light up that parking lot? Because really, that's just the parking lot back there, from what I remember when I go there. So
Or over by where
third base line, yeah.
where the backstop is really
Oh,
my bad.
Oh, Tina.
You repeat that again? So the parking lot's more over to where the third base is, and third base, and then the backstop is more over towards like where the disc golf is. So there's like, it's kind of black in that area.
okay, so I guess my question would be, would a street light style work in that area? And how would these lights outside that fence affect our night sky bylaw that we just put into place?
I don't think, I wish Corey's not here, but I think for the bylaw for the lighting, it doesn't, Macaulay is exempt. Somebody correct me on that, if possible. But I think Macaulay might be exempt for that.
Does anyone have a definitive answer
So-
for this query? CAO Corey? No?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Maxwell.
Kirsten?
Thank
Director
you.
Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. The town facilities are exempt from the provisions of the outdoor lighting bylaw.
Any other additional comments, questions? CAO Corey?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. So I think it's just important to note that if there is a delay in the project that due to liability issues, we would be restricted in renting out that field after dark.
Brandon?
thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. To answer your question, Deputy Mayor, about the street light, a photometric design would have to be done. So that's what will be what'll be done through this project. You'll have to do a photometric if you want to use a street light at the back, just to see what that design looks like. You know, is it coming down? Depends on the fixtures, the wattage that you're using, so it has to be designed. But we can definitely look into that.
Thanks for that, Brandon. Councillor Renwick?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. If we were to leave it as status quo and we don't put the light in, the extra light, the number of people that play there and the number of complaints that we might get, is this based on complaints that people have complained that when they're playing there that they can't see the ball when it goes out? Or is it something that, explain to me how this came about?
Tina?
I believe there was a motion put on the table for this, and there was a complaint that they can't see the ball when it's in the dark areas, when they're in play. So this could be a safety risk, and now that it's come to our attention, we do have to act on it. So that's where we are today.
Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. I'm not sure I can answer this question. I'm just curious, the rental of that, how often is it rented in the evening hours that where the lights would be required, especially in the summertime when we have daylight saving time?
It is rented definitely Monday to Fridays, and on the weekends, it's when they have tournaments, but it's mostly every weekend. So, but I can't give you the exact numbers off the top of my head.
Okay, I just wonder, I'm more curious on the time of the rentals. Do they run in after 9, 10 o'clock at night?
Yes, they do.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. And just a very quick question. CAO Corey, you said it would result in the inability to use it during the evening, but the report says which may result in the inability to use it. So I'm just, is it a decision that is made at the time, or how does that work?
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, through you, Chair Fitzgerald. So now that the town has been advised that there is an issue with lighting in that area after dark, we have an issue. So as soon as we are aware that there could potentially be a problem, if we were to rent that field out after dark and someone were to be injured, the town of Huntsville, regardless, would be responsible. But now we would have known that there may have been an injury. So that's when we do studies, we need to be prepared to assume the level of risk that comes out of those studies. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just to respond to Councillor Renwick's inquiry about how this issue arose, it was a concern that was raised through Councillor Morrison, and he has been dealing directly with the individuals who have had concerns. It's been mixed. We have had feedback from some users that said that there was no issue at all and that they could see perfectly fine. And then we've had concerns from others who said, no, it's a problem. So that resulted in the study being done. And now the town has the results. And I apologize, Your Worship, that's something I should have caught in the report review. It should have clearly stated that we should not be renting the
Follow up, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Yes, and in fact, I appreciate that response, and I support this motion today, partially because it was brought to our table, and we did undergo the study, and the study is confirming the concern that was raised. So I do think that it sort of puts us in the position where we're boxed in. We now know that the concern that was raised, there was some accuracy to it. So, and I look at it and I think, well, it is, $70,000 to be funded, but almost 11,000 of that is from our DCs, and that's what our DCs are for. So, it's not ideal because it is another ask, and so I understand Councillor Clark's concern for sure, but I think that from the perspective of the way this is presented in the note, I would support it, and thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Chair Fitzgerald. And yeah, it was, I believe, Councillor Morrison brought it because he walked the line with Joe. There was from Hornets, but I think it was a tournament that they had done that one weekend, and out of town people had really complained about the safety, which is obviously not a reputation we want. Going forward, I am in support of this. When I look at the math, I mean, we did, to Tina's report, save initially when we did the whole thing. So we saved like 80,000. So we're turning around and putting 70,000 back in when it comes to lighting. I know I have gone and watched friends' games at 9 o'clock at night. So I know they are playing during the week at 9 o'clock at night into 10, 11-ish. So there is a need there. And I do think we need to save our budget for the next time around, because I know soccer is asking for lights too out there. So the only comment I do have is I do not like that we are exempt from our own bylaws. So how do we make it work as far as timing and maybe the lighting that we need for it to be safe, but not over and above our dark sky need is, I guess, what I would ask.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Schumacher. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I have to admit, I'm actually okay with the two lights that are going to light up the baselines, the first and third baseline. My concern is putting these big concrete pillars in behind to light up the back area, which is really more of a parking, walking area. So I don't know, are we able to defer this till next month, and maybe get some other stuff about what it would cost just to put the lights down the foul lines and leave the back with the street lights? Or can we, get some pictures? I don't know, maybe I'm more of a photo guy to see what I'm looking at, right? Because it's the big cement pillars are the cost, right? Really the biggest expenses, I would imagine.
Correct.
Thank you for those comments, Deputy Mayor. I think we have to keep in mind that we paid a professional to do the photometric study, and we should rely on those professional comments and findings. Any further comments or questions? I'll go to Councillor Stone and then Councillor Clark.
So, Deputy Mayor, I think that's a wonderful comment. So the safety issue that we're talking about, that we're caught in this catch-22, somebody said it's dangerous. Okay, so what's dangerous? Just the foul line is dangerous. The rest of it isn't. So I would like to know what's the cost of just lighting up the foul lines where the danger is and not doing the rest.
Councillor Clark, I'm going to put you on hold for a second and allow Brandon to comment on that.
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald, I just want to be very clear. The poles that are going behind the backstop is not to light up any green space or parking outside of the backstop. It's to light up what's in the backstop. So from home plate to the edge of the fence is quite a distance. And there's a gray area in there for lighting. So those two poles would be going behind the backstop, shining at the diamond. Just for clarity, because I keep hearing that about parking and street lights for those areas in there. That walking to and from the ball diamond hasn't been an issue. We're trying to light up everything within the fence line of Diamond F.
I'm going to ask a question because it sounds to me like people aren't really comfortable with the photometric study. Is the photometric study available for us to review, and would we be able as lay people understand it?
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald, the photometric design can be distributed through the required process, yes.
I'll ask the question, would people be more comfortable making a decision with that under review? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. For me, sorry, my head's going the other way. I'd love to see an image of what we're looking at. I'm not a baseball player, and everyone, I don't know if you know that, I'm a soccer player. I'm not a baseball player, so I don't really know what we're talking, like I know where foul lines are, but I would like to see a diagram of what we're lighting up. And if it has to be changed, I'm not an expert on photometrics. I don't know if I could read that, like understand that, but I could try. I would like to see an image, a photograph. So I would agree with what Deputy Mayor Armour said about maybe delaying this and bringing back a little bit more information before we make the decision. And I like what Councillor Stone said. Perhaps it's just one area, not everywhere. So
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Clark, sorry to make you wait.
No problem. Thanks, Chair. So just an observation and a comment. So I like the idea of Deputy Mayor Armour's suggestion about the deferral for allow more information. But I'd just like to say, you know, it's a little bit ironic that the original ask was for lighting in the play area. And, you know, then we go and get a photometric study done, and, you know, it comes back and says the issue is really kind of in the non-playing area. And now we're held at ransom, you know, that we might not be able to use the diamonds if we don't do it. And that seems unreasonable to me.
Your worship.
Just a quick final comment. I absolutely support the final comments around the table. I think it makes a lot of sense to get a better sense of what's being proposed, what the original ask was, and just feeling more comfortable about what is being proposed. So I would support a deferral.
You're suggesting motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'll refer to, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Stone. So refer to the clerk. Ms. Boyce? CEO Corey, you have some comments or?
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, or Chair Fitzgerald. I just want to make sure that staff are comfortable with the ask and know what committee would like to see us report back on, or if we just needed a recap.
Brandon?
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald. Thank you. So I guess for us, there was a photometric design done, and I'm happy to walk this committee through it. So is the intent to come back with that and walk you through it?
Correct. Your worship, you have a comment or question?
If I can just add
It
to
is
that sounds great. But I think it would also be good to remind council of what the original complaint was, what the concerns were, and so what the location was and what the reasons were, and then what the photometric study suggested is slightly different from, or it's augmented the nature of the concern, right? So those are the sorts of things I think that would be really helpful.
Brandon?
Through Fitzgerald, yeah. So that again, we'll make sure that we put it in there. The original complaint was the out of play was not lit up.
Right.
The photometric design shows the diamond, and it shows the posts, and it shows the circle that those posts are covering as far as light. So what that does is in the photometrics, it completely showed that in play was 100% sufficient. So it was designed appropriately for what we put out to meet the needs of what we put out. So it does show that there is dark areas outside the playing area. Hence, that's why we're asking to light that up.
Thank you for that, Brandon.
That's very helpful. Sorry, Chair.
Follow-up, Your
Fitzgerald.
worship?
Oh, you should slap my wrists. That's exactly the kind of information that I think, to Councillor Renwick's issue, and that was it's nice to see the visuals, right? And so even if we're deferring it to next month, we can see those visuals, and that will be helpful to making our decision.
All right. One further comment from the chair. It seems to me like we have to have the whole community lit up, our whole municipality, for liability. So I think maybe we should have a legal consult on this as well, because where does our liability start and finish? Okay, we have enough direction. I think. Okay, we have a motion ready. So you're going to have to enlarge it really big for me. Moved by Nancy Armour. Moved by Nancy Alcock, seconded by Bob Stone. As recommended, report Ops 2025-4 Macaulay Robertson Diamond F lights be deferred until February General Committee to obtain additional information on the initial request, the photometric study suggestion, and photographs. 2026-4. CEO Corey?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. If we just could add in there and potential liability. Thank you.
and potential liability. Any further comments or questions? All right. On the amendment, motion, sorry? Motion to defer. All in favor? And that's unanimous. All right, everybody. Moved by Nancy Alcock, seconded by Monty Cluche, whereas salt pollution negatively affects freshwater environments, and whereas the town of Huntsville uses road salt to meet its winter road and sidewalk maintenance obligations. Now, therefore, it is recommended the staff be directed to review the town's road salt usage policies to ensure compliance with minimum maintenance standards while reducing salt use as much as possible. And further, that a sand storage structure be included in the Operations Center redevelopment project. And further, the staff be directed to advise Friends of the Muskoka Watershed to apply for funding for the Salty Muskoka project through the town's community grant program and assist in their application if needed. All right, gentlemen, who's leading this one?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. That'll be me to get started with Brandon here for moral and technical support. So committee received a deputation from Friends of the Muskoka Watershed back on October 26th, 2025 about road salt use in the Muskoka region and their efforts to mitigate the associated environmental effects, the negative environmental effects that are associated with this. Staff were directed to review the Salty Muskoka project and to report back to committee with a motion on, with regards to road salt usage and their request for funding. Before you, as was just read by Chair Fitzgerald, is a recommendation for us to conduct a detailed review of our town's road salt usage policies so that we can endeavor to reduce this usage as much as possible while meeting our requirements under the minimum maintenance standards that are set out by the province. One of these measures is requires notable advanced planning in the form of a sand storage structure, which would be included for consideration with the Operations Redevelopment Project. And finally, that we work with Friends of the Muskoka Watershed to apply for our community grant program in partial support of their funding request. So as a reminder, they had requested $5,000. The community grant program can offer a 50% offset up to $1,500. So in the sort of immediate budget timing to work with them on that application, and in the future could be considered as part of future budgets or future council initiatives.
Thank you, David. No further comments? Comments or questions? Councillor Renwick, followed by your worship.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I don't see any issues with this at all. I think we should just go ahead and have staff do the report and report back to us. I think this is something that across all of Muskoka, it is a serious issue. And I think that we need to have the numbers to know what we are putting out into the environment. So I think it's extremely important that we follow through and do this.
Thank you for those comments, your worship.
Ditto.
Okay, Deputy
But I
Mayor
do
Arnett.
have a quick question, a very quick question. And that is, I'm assuming this will happen, but will you be benchmarking our study against other municipalities and what they're doing with road salt usage?
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald, your worship, yes, I can reach out to our neighboring municipalities and we can look and see what they're putting out as well, just for comparison.
Thanks for that. I was going to go to Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Clark and then
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. I was just at Roma, and actually there's a delegation done by the District of Muskoka, and had to do with private contractors' overuse of salt in parking lots due to the liability of slip and fall accidents that they put in due to the insurance crisis. So I think it's great. Anything we can do to stop that, because eventually all that all that salt ends up in our water system somehow. And the chloride goes up and it creates havoc. Down in Gravenhurst right now, they're having a terrible time in Muskoka Bay with that stuff. So really my question is that you have the cost about there would be an approximately 30,000 in operational savings. Would that be an annual savings? Or is that just a one-time savings?
Brandon?
To you, Chair Fitzgerald. It would be an annual savings. The longer that we don't have that dome, we're putting 5% salt in our sand to also help it from freezing, which still could use more, but exceeds our allowable limit. So every year that we don't have that dome, we're putting more salt into 20,000 ton of sand to stop, or well, to help us anyways, as far as it freezing. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge annual savings.
Thanks, Brandon. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. I'll support the motion, but I want to be cautious in how this whole thing moves forward. We all know how important it is for safe roads, and especially because of all the liabilities that we have. But I do agree it's very important to protect our watersheds.
Councillor Stone?
Thanks. So just for my edification, I know we use salt to get down to melt the snow and ice down to the bare road. When it's super cold, the salt doesn't work. I know municipalities in the far north, they don't use much or any salt at all. They only use sand. Can't we simply use more sand and not use the salt to get down to the bare road? Because the rural roads that are snow-packed, why not just put more sand? More sand and little salt. I know you need it to keep the sand pliable, but...
Brandon?
To you, Chair Fitzgerald. Good questions. It's kind of like a revolving door when we do that. We don't have, we have a salt run. Those are our priorities. Those are your steep hills, your main ones like Center, Lorne, West. The rest of the side streets are not down to bare. It's not our intent to go fully bare. It's having those priority routes should we ever declare a significant weather event or whatever. Those are the primary roads that we need open, also for emergency services and to get people to and from. So based on the topography, we found that adding more sand has been inefficient and that salt is actually working. So yes, it doesn't work in the cold. However, through the minimum maintenance standards, we can pre-treat the roads before you get that type of weather. And we are doing that. So even though it's not effective, -10 or colder, when you put it down, if you're going at a certain rate of speed, it bounces off the road. All of our trucks are calibrated. So the spinners are spitting at a certain rate, putting out a certain production of salt so that it does stay on the road. So there's pre-treat as well that we do under the minimum maintenance standards for it. We can definitely continue to look at that. I mean, again, it's our job to look for efficiencies in what works on a constant basis. But the topography that we have south of Main Street, it's very difficult to just fill it full of sand.
Thanks for that, Brandon. Follow up, or you're good? Any
Sorry,
further?
just
David?
to add to that, if I could, through you,
Certainly.
Councillor Fitzgerald, just from an environmental perspective as well, adding, we don't want to put too much extra sand into our environment either. That can also have negative effects on water bodies in the spring when the extra sand, if we aren't able to clean it all off, melts or is carried in. You get extra sedimentation happening within those sort of environments. You can cloud up your water system. It can have other effects downstream. There was work that was done out of the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority that brought together an assessment of some of the other municipalities that are trying different things with regards to their mix of salt and sand and how much salt to use versus how much sand and what the impacts on that are, both operationally and environmentally. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do with this review is to dive a little deeper into that and to get a better understanding of how this fits across other municipalities, both within Muskoka and outside of it, to make sure that what we're doing is in line with best practices, both operationally and environmentally.
Okay, I think Brandon had some additional comments there.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I just want to point out to this committee that you guys are already doing your part, and you might not see it up front, but also through our development standards, private properties, any commercial developments, they are held to an accountability through the development stage and planning stage for environmental control on their property. So those amenities such as oil and grit separators or catch basins with sumps, they store that type of stuff and they need to be cleaned out. So you as this committee and council are already doing your part by approving those development standards that these developers have to follow. So not only on private property are we trying to reduce that, so it's being captured and not directly running in. And then in our own systems, as well as district systems, our outlets have storage for that type of oil, grit, any type of contaminant, and then they get cleaned out on a regular basis. We're constantly cleaning our catch basins out every spring before we get into the major rains that come with spring. So we're getting all of that stuff out of our systems, the best that we can. Can I put a true number, to it? I can't at this point as to what we're really taking out. But please consider that the last few years we were recycling our winter sand that we swept up as well as cleaned out of our catch basins. They were getting screened and reprocessed. So there's already a bunch of stuff that this committee is already doing. I just wanted to bring that to the forefront as well.
Thanks, Brandon. Councillor Cloutier.
Through you, Chair. It's nice to hear from Deputy Armour saying that the contractors on the stores and everything are being looked at heavily. A friend of mine has a small store on a strip mall, and he said he literally has to shovel the salt away from the door in the morning to get the door open. But you can't blame the contractor because he's held liable. I mean, they're the ones. So there's that scales that has to be turned in one way or another too, but I don't think we could ever turn them scales. With the sand usage, it costs a lot to clean it up too. Like, it costs more, and yes, salt, and this goes back to the first item that we should be doing when we're looking at our operations is getting some domes built. Number one priority when we redo our operations yard. I think that's what we have to look at on board right away.
I'm going to go to your worship and then Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you very much, Chair Fitzgerald. Just a quick comment. I echo again the importance of this particular issue, and I wanted to say thank you to both of our team over there for all of your great answers. And I know your passion when it comes to this, and I really appreciate the responses. But most importantly, I appreciate the conversation around the table on this. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, just to comment more to what Councillor Cloutier had said, and thank you, Brandon, for reiterating that, businesses and we are doing our part. I mean, I can think of shopping locally over Christmas and seeing that glare of blue on a sidewalk that you knew it was completely just salted. And I get to Councillor Clark's point, there's liability issues out there, but you just could tell it was completely over salted in what it was, that color that, just shone blue. So it's good to know we are trying to do our part to not have as many of those out there.
I guess my question is, at what point does a municipality offer incentives or try to work with the province on subsidizing other ways for heat mats? If we continue down the path we're continuing down with the salt, even with reduction, there's going to be water quality issues and harm done to the lakes. The levels, pH levels, are at risk in a lot of bodies of water. So hopefully we look into that moving forward. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Clark.
Thanks. Just one last one, just to do with the private sector and salting. I mean, it's really, the oversalting is directly to do with the overcharging from insurance companies and the added liability that's put on to commercial business owners. That's the real issue.
All right. No further comments, questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you both. All right. Moved by Jan Schumacher, seconded by Helena Renwick, whereas Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation is accepting applications for its spring cycle of up to $50,000. And whereas the town's delegation of authority bylaw provides approval for staff to submit grant applications for identified projects on a capital plan. And whereas staff wish to apply the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation to replace water rescue equipment not recognized in the 2026 capital plan. Now therefore, it is recommended that notwithstanding the provisions within the delegation of authority bylaw regarding certain grants only to be submitted if in a capital plan, council authorizes the treasurer or designate to submit the grant for the following items: 12 dry suits complete with accessories, and further that upon approval of the grant, the contributions for fire capital reserve from the levy will increase by 5,000 commencing in 2027 in the draft mayor's budget. Chief Monahan. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for that, Councillor Fitzgerald. So I think it was probably this time last year, I was in front of council asking for us approval to go. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful last year in the grant. So again, we're back this year, looking for council's approval to try it again and see if we can replace some of our ice water gear. So I'm here for questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, Chief. Questions, comments? Are you raising your hand, Councillor Stone?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So last year at this time, I said, why do you need to ask if you need to go for a grant? And I thought we were going to fix that with staff.
To
CEO
Chair
Corey.
Fitzgerald. So we did, I'll have the clerks can speak specifically to the change in the delegation of authority bylaw, but we do have that provision that's in there now. However, if it's not a timing issue, we would prefer to come to committee, because not only are we applying for the grant, but it's increasing our capital contribution. So because right now we currently have, the chief had mentioned how many units, so now we're adding it, which means we have to add money to our capital contribution. So where time permits, you will still see us before this table. Where it doesn't permit, we do have the authority to just apply for the grant.
That makes perfect sense. Further comments, questions? No? Lucky day, Chief. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm tempted to call a break now, but I don't want to wake Director Nagy wait. So hopefully when he's finished, someone will call a break. And I will pass it on to Deputy Mayor Armour to assume the chair. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Councillor Fitzgerald. We have our chief billing official here, Mr. Nagy. And he has an update for us on our fees and charges bylaw for the appeals committee. So I have a motion. It's moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It's recommended that the amendments to the fees and charges bylaw as attached to the report DEV 2026-9 be approved. And further that all references to the appeals committee within the fees and charges bylaw be removed. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So first, staff would like to thank Council for giving us the opportunity to review all of our bylaws that can be heard in front of the Appeals Committee. This review led to the recommendation within the report to adopt a new user fee schedule for the Appeals Committee. And whereas staff have suggested a reduced cost for exemption-based requests to this committee. Although Council's position was to see zero cost for these exemptions, the proposed amount of $150 relates to the characteristics of the committee being a requested ad hoc committee and council's remuneration bylaw and the need to pay councillor members $50 for those meetings. Appeals heard by this committee have been left to the original $300 as there is additional staff time with these requests, as well as the understanding that these appeals relate to businesses where monetary gain is expected upon review of the appeal. Finally, through the report, staff have provided additional options to reduce cost to the appellant. However, staff feel the recommendation is best positioned as other options may introduce additional cost to the levy or amendments to council's remuneration bylaw, which has not been requested under the previous motion. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass the chair over to Councillor Renwick, but we'll take a biological break, 5 minutes. 10 minutes.
And welcome back, everyone. We are now at our very extremely exciting portion of our meeting, the corporate services. We have a item 6.4.1. It's a procedural bylaw amendment advisory panel. It is moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Stone. Whereas in the fall of 2025, Council directed staff to report back on any amendments required to the town's procedural bylaw to accommodate an advisory panel for the new trust agreement for Pittman's Bay. Now, therefore, it is recommended that the amendments to the procedural bylaw attached as Appendix A to Report Corp 2026-2 be approved, and further that the bylaw amendment be forwarded to Council for consideration. And we have Jessica is going to give us an update on this.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Renwick. So during the process of wrapping up the Pittman's Bay matter, staff were directed to prepare a court application to create an advisory panel, and there were amendments required to the procedural bylaw to allow for that. In addition, during that review, I noted some conflicts between ad hoc committees and advisory panels, so that was just cleaned up to better align with the purpose of the two bodies.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Are there any questions around the committee table? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Renwick. I'm happy to see this coming to an end where we have some resolution to this Pittman's Bay. So thank you, everyone involved.
Thank you for those comments. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank Chair Renwick. Just a very quick question. So will this committee be coming to council to report, or will they be going through another system to give information back on if they want to do anything?
Through you, Chair Renwick. So the advisory panel will not be reporting directly to council. They will come through a staff member who will sit on the advisory panel. And if there's any requirements to come to council, they will bring that forward. And that will be outlined in the motion when we actually create the panel after the court application is finalized.
Great. Thank you for that, Jessica. Are there any other questions around the table? No? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to 6.4.2. This is a slightly longer, is it? Yes, it's a slightly longer motion, but I'll read it. So it's moved by Councillor Stone and seconded by Mayor Alcock. Whereas in 2017, all 6 lower tier municipalities in Muskoka entered into a memorandum of understanding that formalized a partnership for regional economic development. And whereas in 2024, the District of Muskoka created the first dedicated economic development role at the upper tier level, creating new opportunities for coordination between both levels of municipal government in Muskoka. And whereas the implementation of the Muskoka workforce strategy has required Venture Muskoka to partner with an increasing number of external parties, and whereas the MOU has been updated to reflect current conditions and establish the principles for effective engagement with the district and other partners. And now, therefore, it is recommended that the Director of Corporate and Community Strategy be delegated authority to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the area municipalities and the District of Muskoka for Venture Muskoka, and for the purpose of a regional economic development. Second page, and further that the amendment to the delegation of authority bylaw be presented to council for final consideration. And we have our economic development officer here is Lauren McDermott.
Thank you, through you, Chair Renwick. So in 2014, economic development representatives from the lower tier municipalities developed the Venture Muskoka brand and launched an investment attraction website to collaboratively promote the region and leverage the strength of the Muskoka brand. So this brand and the participating members, which are the 6 lower tier municipalities and soon to be the district, are collectively referred to as Venture Muskoka. So in 2017, all 6 lower tier municipalities in Muskoka entered into a memorandum of understanding, which is known as an MOU, that formalized a partnership for regional economic development. So since then, Venture Muskoka members have successfully partnered on several regional economic development projects, including the development of the Muskoka Workforce Strategy and the launch of the Muskoka Job Board, including the award-winning EDAC campaign videos for manufacturing, tourism, and trades. And in 2024, the District of Muskoka created the first dedicated economic development role at the upper tier level. So creating new opportunities for coordination between both levels of municipal government in Muskoka. With continued evolution of the collaborative partnership between the lower tier municipalities, the MOU has been updated to reflect current conditions and establish the principles for effective engagement. Updates to the MOU include clarifying the history and purpose, descriptions of its operating model and membership roles, adding the District of Muskoka as a full member of Venture Muskoka, updating the financial administration to be handled by a member municipality, and defining parameters for external partnerships with other regional stakeholders. So the MOU does not create a financial obligation for any member beyond approved project expenditures, which will be approved through each and is approved through each municipal budget. So no additional costs or anything like that. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Lauren. That was great. Are there any questions around the table? Your worship.
Thank you, Chair Renwick, and thank you, Lauren, for the report. I absolutely support this, not a surprise. I find it interesting and actually kind of refreshing that the town of Bracebridge is the one that takes all of the funds and then redistributes, and we will continue with that role. Yeah.
Yes, through you, Chair Renwick. So this is the new model proposed in the report. Everyone will be taking to their respective councils to confirm, and we're ideally looking at by March the signing of it. So once it's signed, that would be when they can then hand it over to that municipality to take on. And there's in the financial section, it does go into detail explaining the reasoning and why, but there's just a lot more continuity with multiple staff members and that kind of thing for the town of Bracebridge to take on that role.
Great. Thank you for that.
Are there any other questions around the table? No? If I may just have a comment, and it was something that came up in the review, so the agenda review, and my only concern, and it's not really a concern, it's more just a comment that we don't want to have any, it's not great to have duplication. We've already got Muskoka Tourism, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have a lot of different entities that are really working towards the same goals as this Venture Muskoka. So I think you're aware of that, you know, there are a lot of entities that are doing the same thing, so I guess there's just more collaboration. So I don't want duplication. I really like the idea of collaboration. The fact that the District of Muskoka already they have an economic development officer, and we've had these other roles already. I'm just nervous about duplication, that's all. So, but I'm just talking maybe. Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chair Renwick. I hear what you're saying because when you read the note, you see similar objectives and all of the things that we want to do, Venture Muskoka, Muskoka Tourism, whatever. From my perspective, and it's funny because I had similar thoughts, but then I think of some of the events I've been involved with that through the Economic Development Office. And areas where I think we are distinctly different is where we reach out to, let's say, our industrial community. And I don't see the other Muskoka Tourism and, and the other organizations doing that as much, developing a strategy as to how we can help. For example, our businesses in intense industry. So that is very distinctly different, and it does require a consortium that develops a strategy for that particular sector. And for me, that's really useful, thinking about that.
And thank you for that. And I'll go to Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Renwick. And just, I guess that kind of made me think, I know I'd heard talk when we were doing the 55+ Winter Games with the Chamber and the proposal that put through that they were looking at reviving that volunteer Muskoka board again. And I'm just wondering, like with this, where does that sort of sit? Could this be something that the Venture, like when they kind of do that outside the box stuff, as Councillor Renwick mentioned, we have, Tourism Muskoka, and they focus on those areas. what entity looks at, say, volunteers in Muskoka throughout? And we used to have that volunteer database that people could pull from. And who sort of does that?
Thank you for that. Jessica?
So through you-
Lauren, sorry.
Oh.
Not Jessica.
Through you, Chair Renwick. So that there's a few ways to answer that question. We actually have a memorandum of understanding with the Chamber of Commerce to do business retention and expansion initiatives that include Volunteer in Muskoka. So that's through the ECDEV lens already that we're partnering on those things to achieve those objectives. So obviously there's ways to intertwine and how that can support. And one also thing to note is that economic development, tourism is one element and aspect of economic development as a whole. So economic development is to attract people here, want to work here, live here, stay here. And we're also focusing within our economic development strategy on diversification. So it's not just tourism, absolutely, but it's tourism, manufacturing, trades, all those things, including workforce. And we're able to focus from a regional lens on that from when it comes to like investment attraction to have that larger scale support because we work better as collaboratively rather than like all of us having to do individual videos. We might as well just put our money and pull it together to do those things. And then when the leads come in, we can hand off and start to do that attraction. So it focuses on investment and traction, largely business retention and expansion, working with those businesses, trying to keep them here, and then creating those things that also support the different sectors that we want to focus on.
Thank you for that, Lauren. Are there any comments or questions additional? No? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Great, that's carried. Thank you. Excellent. All right, and we're heading into the next one here. It's 6.4.3, and it's the corporate 2026 Corporate Action Plan and Council Directives Update. It is moved by Councillor Schumacher and seconded by Councillor Clark. It is recommended that the updated Corporate Action Plan as attached to Report Corp 2026-4 be adopted. And we have Director Reva Frame here with us. Hi, Reva.
Thank you, Chair Renwick. So this report is providing an update to the council directives listing that we've seen a number of times over the last few years, and an update to the corporate action plan that was approved in January of last year. So a corporate action plan really is just another word for a business plan, and provides specific actions that can be taken or projects that will help the town achieve the strategic goals and initiatives in our strategic plan. As it stands, attached to the report, the corporate action plan has 119 projects included on it. This is up from 91 that were included on the plan last year. Some of these projects have already been completed. Some are already in progress, while others are things that we're planning to do moving forward. So as a reminder, the projects were pulled from a number of different sources, including the council directives listing that's also attached to the report, legislation, and the implementation plans that were approved by council to be guiding documents from those 3 special purpose committees from earlier in this term. As I noted in the report, the implementation plans include recommended projects. So some are on the corporate action plan today, while others are included on a centralized tracking sheet to ensure that they're not lost. The recommendations help to populate future projects as resources become available. The recommendations from the implementation plans may not have made it onto the corporate action plan yet for a number of reasons. So generally speaking, though, it's largely due to either a lack of resources for that project or another project that's currently on the action plan needs to be completed first. Or we just don't know yet when or if the project is even feasible. So just a little bit of detail about the projects on the list. So of the 119 projects currently on the list, 45 have already been completed. 64 of those projects are in progress or on hold, which just means we're waiting for some event to happen. We're waiting for information from a third party. So staff are kind of at a standstill to move those on hold projects forward. There are only 10 of the 119 projects that have not yet been started. And the majority of those not started projects are projected to begin at some point in 26 or 27. So essentially, the corporate action plan is very similar to the directives list, which is actually incorporated into the action plan. The directives listing update that has been included in the report now has an additional column in it indicating the link to the corporate action plan. So what project on the corporate action plan is linked to that directive? So you can kind of cross-reference between the two. As new council directives are added, they will be added into the corporate action plan as well. Ultimately, we shouldn't have council directives or projects that don't support strategic initiatives contained in the strategic plan or that are supported by specific legislation. The intention here is to combine both listings into one going forward, which is a little tricky to do. So right now we're cross-referencing the two documents. We're also, as staff, we're looking into ways that we can incorporate a public-facing dashboard into the website, so we're able to provide more timely updates on these projects going forward. So we are actively looking into options on ways to do that. So I am available for questions.
Are there any questions? Your worship.
Thank you, Chair Renwick, and thank you, Reva, for this report. You know, I couldn't go without saying something. I'm always, when I read these, I'm frankly overwhelmed. I think, wow, this is a lot of stuff, right? And then I'm inspired because I see, as you said, 45 out of 119 have been completed, and that's an enormous amount of work by both staff and also council that, you know, we get our heads together and we do that. Quick question, and that is, I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to understand it, and that is, there are a couple of projects where it says they're in progress, like the Housing Action Plan or the Better Homes Project, which we, you know, had the update the other day, and I'm assuming they stay in progress while they are being implemented. So is that, I look at the Housing Action Plan was completed. It has 20 recommendations, so I'm assuming until we've completed those 20 recommendations, it will always be in progress. Is that the case?
Go ahead, Reva.
Yeah, so through you, Chair Renwick. So they may be in progress in the attachment to the report for a number of reasons. So with Better Homes specifically, that report came to council Monday night.
Yeah.
And we just launched it. So when this report was written, it was in progress. It wasn't completed. So that, you know, the implementation of that, like the launch of that program is now done. So we're going to mark that completed. With the Housing Action Plan, and I believe in our directives list, there's a little bit more detail, a little bit more progress notes included in the directives listing. With respect to the corporate action plan, and really that one, there's one item that can't be implemented until our SRDU program has been fully launched, which we haven't done. We haven't launched the program yet and have those packages ready for the public.
Okay.
So that's why that one's in progress. So
it is kind of, if I may, I'm sorry, it is saying until the 20 recommendations or whatever the number, I think it was 20, but until that's done, then we can't say done.
Yes.
Okay, again, I'm blown away, and thank you for the update. I do have one more question.
We'll come back to you then. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Sharon. Very quickly, Shea Road says on hold. Is that us or is that MTO or is it just?
So Shea Road is on hold pending further direction from the MTO, and Shea Road's also included on the directives attachment. So a little bit more progress notes are provided in the directives than on the action plan side. And that's something I think going forward with the updates and something I'd like to incorporate into whatever dashboard we create, we have the progress notes readily available. So yeah, right now, our maintenance agreement for Shea Road is in place with the MTO, and the agreement speaks to future transfer of ownership that has to be initiated by the MTO. So until that happens, it's going to be on hold.
Thank you for that. And Your Worship, did you have a follow-up question?
Very quick, if I may. Reva, you made reference to the public-facing document. And could you expand on that a little bit? Because ideally it would be fantastic if the public could just check our website and see where we're at with all of these things.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I would like to do, is have some sort of public facing dashboard on our website where, you know, at any point in time, the community can just go to our website and find out where the project's at. We're not there yet, and we're looking at options on how to do that. So the way that we publicly communicate the progress of these projects is through the corporate action plan and the directive listing updates. So we're looking into options and ways to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Director Frame mentioned that she loves Excel, and if she could make Excel do a dance and do what she wants it to do, I'm sure she'll find a way to do it. So, but thank you for this document, and it's really is amazing to see the amount of work that has been done and that it continues to be done. So, if you haven't had a real deep dive into that, maybe take it some point and look at it and just see what you know. Thank you for this. It's been very informative. Are there any other questions around the table? No. So by seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. It's carried. All right, and we're on to our last item here. It's budget matters, and it is moved by Councillor Cloutier and seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. It is recommended that committee approve the excluded expenses from the Town of Huntsville 2026 approved mayor's budget as presented and passed on November 13th, 2025, and outlined in Report Corp 2026-5. And we have Julia McKenzie, Director McKenzie here to speak to this item. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this report explains that the Town of Huntsville must follow special rules that the Ontario government puts out when making its budget. So these rules let the town leave out certain costs, like how buildings and equipment wear out over time or future employee benefits, but only if it clearly shows what these costs would have been. And that's the purpose of this report. So this report also explains why the budget and financial statements look different. The budget focuses on the money the town plans to collect and spend during the year, while the financial statements show the full value of what the town owes over time. So I hope that provides a bit of clarity.
I always appreciate when you give us a little bit of an update because it is sort of two different looks at the same budget, is it not? Yeah. Are there any questions around the table for Director McKenzie? Councillor Stone.
I just would be remiss if I didn't congratulate Director McKenzie on the fact that it's only 3 pages for a financial report. Congratulations.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stone. You should be congratulated from that from Councillor Stone. Anyone else have a comment or a question around the table? No, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay, carried. And that concludes the corporate services portion of this meeting, and I will pass the chair back to Mayor Alcock.
Thank you very much, Chair Renwick. And so the next part is pretty quick, I think. We don't have anything under new business because neither of our deputations were asking us for anything. So that's great. Nothing under general information, and we do not have a closed session. So with that, look at this. I have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 11:20 a.m. Questions? Comments? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, everybody.